afternoon. Now today I'm talking about listening, because I've been doing a lot of listening lately in the lockdown. I hope you have too. It's one of the unintended benefits and the happy consequences of having all this downtime is really digging into the record collection. And I was listening to, and I talked about a jazz drumming compilation the other day. And what's very interesting about that is if you just play it without necessarily referring to the cover or the liner notes, it's different drummers on every track. Some of the stuff is well known, some of the stuff is not well known at all. And it's very interesting when you get to some of those drummers whose names are not known by the wider public, and particularly by younger generations of drummers. You know, amazing players like Shadow Wilson and Tiny Khan, and all kinds of guys who are, not, history has not held them to the forefront in quite the same way as the Buddy Riches, Max Roaches, and so many of the others. Now, many years ago, on this subject, Downbeat magazine, here's a copy there, 1974, little Buddy on the cover right there. They used to do a thing called the Blindfold test, and the object of the Blindfold test was that they would play records to a prominent musician without them knowing who they were listening to, and then elicit their opinions on those recordings. And some of the results could get quite hilarious at times, and just occasionally a little bit controversial. And it brings up the subject of how we judge what we're listening to, or to whom we are listening, by the name, by what's on the tin. I remember quite a few years ago I'd been doing a gig at a fondly remembered venue that all London jazz musicians of my generation will recall. And that was the Panshanger Golf Complex at Welwyn Garden City. And I came out of there and I put the drums into the car and turned the radio on to Radio 2. And the first thing that came out of the radio was, it was a piano solo on a jazz recording of some description, just piano with bass and drums accompaniment. And within a very few seconds, as we consciously or subconsciously tend to do, I had evaluated what the drummer was doing and come to an opinion about what I thought of this particular drummer's playing. However, it was only when the band came in again after the end of the piano solo that I realised that I was actually listening to myself. And not knowing it was my own playing gave me a completely different perspective on it. And sometimes if you're listening to music without thinking about who it is, and so-and-so drummer who you really like, or so-and-so drummer who you don't like so much, just listen to the playing. And my personal favourite industry anecdote of my own, which is so good it kind of merits a video of its own, which I will get round to one of the days, involves a drum feature on this album that I did quite a few years ago. The drum feature is called King Size Skins, and when a moderately well-known British drummer heard it, without knowing who it was, he refused to believe that it was a British drummer, which I guess, I don't know, is that a compliment? I'm not sure. Write in and tell me, or don't, as the case may be. But the thing is, we've all bought records, particularly in the great era of the session players, the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s. We've all bought records because of the name of the drummer on the record. And sometimes what you end up hearing isn't all that good. I've made this mistake a number of times, where you buy a record just because it's a drummer you're really into, and it's kind of not all that. So sometimes it's just really good to listen with a completely open mind and an open ear, and without concerning yourself about who's playing on the record. Just, come to a conclusion about it in other ways, evaluate it on its musical merits, technical merits, if that's your thing, but don't just evaluate it because of whose name is on the cover. So enjoy listening, but as I say, do so with an open mind. And I shall see you almost certainly tomorrow. Take care.